everybody. Welcome to the SABIAN Podcast. I'm Chris Stankee, Director of Artist Relations for SABIAN, here with the Chairman of the Board, SABIAN's owner, Andy Zildjian. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Chris.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the history of SABIAN, starting wherever you want, maybe 1967. I don't even want to go back to 16, whatever.
1623? Yeah, sure.
Even though you could.
Yeah, well... Well, actually, the easy part about it is that my dad used to like going up to Canada. He liked to go hunting and fishing up there, which is, you know, just to go out into the outdoors and relax and get away, because he was in the big city of Boston at that point. In the late 60s, after the Second World War, during the Marshall Plan, there were tariffs and such that were for shipping from the United States over to Europe. And we were getting some new competition that was coming in. So there were a couple different reasons on why to have a factory in a place that was a Commonwealth country.
Because it was like a 30% tariff or something.
It was pretty high.
To an English Commonwealth, right?
Yeah, it was pretty high. It was pretty high. We wanted to have a second line cymbal company. Of course, my grandfather at that point, hot and cold on the whole thing. It's like, yes, Bob, do this right now. And then about 2 weeks later, he'd be like, why do you think we need this? Why do you? And it was typical. So the cool part was that when we decided that we were going to put up a factory, we were going to put it up in a place where my dad liked to go, in a Commonwealth country, Canada, and really liked the people up there because they had a work ethic and a sense of who they were. My grandfather, when he was putting the factory up, said, "Bob, I don't want to do this anymore." And he said, "Look, the metal's already coming, everything's going, we're already shipping equipment up there." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll pay for it. But I want you to sign this document that says at any point, if I want to, I can buy this factory for what it costs to put it up." It's the only time he had my grandfather sign anything, and thank God he did. Because as things went along, we started making Zilco, or we started the company ASCO, which is AZ company, and we made Zilco cymbals, which were really inexpensive and easy to make. So we had that second line cymbal that we could compete with the European brand, and we could ship over to Europe without having to have the tariffs. And then as demand started to grow really fast and took off, the factory that was down near Boston couldn't keep up. So what do? Well, we've got this whole factory up in Canada, and they have the ability to make some of the cymbals that we need. So take the ones that are hard to make and have the other ones run through the factory down around Boston, just have it run through, just production line it. And, like the old Ford Motor Company, just out it goes. Whereas the guys in Canada were doing more of the craft stuff. They were doing the extra thins, they were doing the Chinese, the swish pang knockers, all that kind of just weird stuff that was still desired, but not the mainstream cymbal sound. And as time went on, they got really good at it. The only thing we couldn't do up there was we couldn't make the castings, because that was family process, and that was all being done down in Boston. And at that point, my brother and I were actually working at the place down in Boston and learning how to do most of the things that we needed to know how to do, especially the family secret portion. And then we kind of had this family disagreement in 1979 when my grandfather, who was the referee in the triumvirate of my dad, my uncle, and my grandfather, when he was gone, there was no referee left. And so the disagreements just sort of got to a point where it wasn't healthy. So it was time to split. The old man left, and he pulled out that piece of paper and said, "By the way, I get the factory for $100,000. Oh, that blew their minds.
Wow, for $100,000.
I know. Yeah, and that was everything.
So it wasn't even negotiated. It had to be on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And that's how he ended up with the
factory. I know. It's one of those things you go, wow, that's foresight, or just lucky. Just lucky. Yeah. So that's how the factory started.
Well, back up to like 1975 for a minute. Didn't your dad negotiate the sale of K. Zildjian in Turkey to A. Zildjian in Boston?
Yes, there had been, Gretsch had the trademark in the United States for K. Zildjian, and K was Kerope, which was the family that was still over in Istanbul. My grandfather left. He was never going back to Turkey because it was dangerous back there for Armenians, so nope, forget it. We started the company he started the company in Quincy and then grew from there, but they still had the old factory in Istanbul. And my dad went over there, and it's typical with the negotiations with that, I can't even say generation, but it was just that group of people. my grandfather, my uncle, my dad, the people over at Zildjian, they'd get together, instead of saying, okay, well, what do you think about how we're going to do this? It would start off with, listen. And it just escalated so that they were all shouting at each other all the time.
So it got very loud, very fast.
Right, but that was just negotiation, which, I mean, that's not the way I work, but at the same time, that's how it worked. And they'd go back and forth and back and forth. And he was working with this guy, Mikhail, who was the senior family member that was over in Istanbul. And he got all the way through, finished everything, had an agreement ready to roll, and he said, okay, great. So now we can sign this. And he said, well, no, now we have to ask the owner of the company to make sure it's okay with him. I know, the old man was like, wait a minute, what? Who's the owner? And it turned out that the guy who would buy and sell scrap to them was the owner, because they hadn't been paying him over the years. So he ended up just taking over the company because they owed him so much. That was a guy named Kovo. And he was perfectly fine with the whole thing. And that was like 1975, 76, around then. And bought out that factory, closed it up, and supposedly got rid of the equipment, which obviously they didn't, because there's still Turkish companies over there, and brought the trademarks over. But the cool part, I think, the cool part with that was Kerepe, who was not the one that was named after, but a descendant of that one. And his sons came over to Canada and taught us how to hand hammer. So it hadn't been done in the States since, my God, like before 1935. Because up at around 35, they started with the automatic hammers. And previous to that, it had been hand hammering. But that art was lost in the States. No one used it. And so we learned how to do it up there. And that's where HH and hand hammer comes from. And I tell you, you can really hear the difference of somebody hand hammering it and putting their energy into that cymbal, as compared to somebody who can do almost the exact same thing with a machine, but there's just no life that's put into it. Yeah.
So Zildjians were made in Canada then, from about 1975 to the split with between your dad and your uncle,
right,
in 1979, late 1979.
1981, actually. 79 is when my grandfather died.
Yeah.
It took a little while.
Oh, it did? Oh, I thought it was instantaneous.
No, not quite.
So if you find a Zildjian stamped made in Canada, that came out of the SABIAN factory.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have been just one of that little window of time.
Well, that's one of the ways that we got one of your best friends, Neil, because he recognized the Canadian K.
Yeah.
And thought, "Ooh, I haven't heard this for a while. Where has this been? How come I haven't been able to get this from my current company?" And
well, he used the same ride forever, from 1974 to all the way to the end. Made in Canada. That was an A, though. Right.
But he could hear the Canada K. Yeah.
What was RZ able to retain when he split with your uncle? And what did he have to let go of?
Well, we got to retain all of the skill that we had up in Canada, which I think really that's the important part. The skill that was up there, all of the machinery that we had up there, all of the cool cymbals that we'd been making up there, not just the hand hammered, but we were doing other things. Like at that point, we actually had the Roctagon, but we hadn't introduced it. So we were already doing some innovative things and moving forward with stuff. So you got to keep that, but he had to give up, which I think is kind of, I wouldn't say it's too bad, but I didn't think it still makes a difference, but it's not a big difference. That we had to give up all the trademarks that we had. So all the A, all the K had to go away, even though we were actually making that had to go away. Okay. Actually, you know what? I really think it started off with the AA was because we had HH. We couldn't do K, so we had to do HH with hand hammer. And so what do?
But all the craftsmen from Turkey were working in Canada. None of them were working in Boston.
Only 3 of them. Yeah. But yeah, they all were. Yeah.
But that was who? It was Kerepe.
Yeah.
Michael, his son.
Yep.
And who else?
Gabe.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike came over first.
He was the fiery one, right?
Yeah. He sure was.
So what did he do for us when he got to Canada?
Well, he was the first one who was up there, and he started showing everybody how to use the hand hammer, how to actually do that correctly. And really, he started off teaching everybody how to do it, and then Kerepe came over, and Gabe soon afterwards. And Kerepe, because he'd been doing it the longest, ended up being the one who was really, he was the quality control. and he'd keep an eye on what the other fellows were doing, and we started to teach more and more people. So instead of just the two sons, now we had about 5 people who were hand hammering, and a lot of those guys hand hammered for a good 20 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Popeye arms, huh?
Okay, no. A lot of people ask that question, right? But the thing that gets me about it is you got to understand it's the molar method when they're doing this. So I've heard people say there's no way anybody can hand hammer a cymbal. Like, really? So for 400 years, no one was making cymbals? I know. How did that happen?
If they've just taken the hammer and hit the right place on the cymbal with the anvil underneath, it bounces right back at you.
Absolutely.
It's like very little effort. But yeah, getting people to understand that. Well, they watch our artists when they're up there in the factory trying to do it for the first time, and you hear clank, 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 and then it doesn't bounce back at you. So you're thinking, oh, this is not as easy as we thought it would be.
Yeah.
They make it, our guys make it look easier, but that's crazy. So a lot of those guys were doing that for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
So what about the Zildjian family secret? What can you tell me about that? I know your dad used to say, well, you want me to play that on a violin for you? But what's your response to that? What's the Zildjian family secret to making bronze?
The secret, it's very simple, but it has to be done correctly. That if you don't do, then you don't have the energy transfer in the cymbal coming out correctly. So that energy that's traveling around doesn't travel around as well. And it's kind of like it's like a sour milk sound.
Wow.
You know, it's there, you can hear it, there's a cacophony, but it's not a congruent or a symphonic cacophony. How's that?
Okay.
Right?
So it probably is true then, because somebody was trying to turn base metals into gold, that they stumbled upon this. This was back in the 1600s, though, right?
But they didn't write a history of it. Actually, being in 1623, that's when the company was incorporated. So actually, it had to be earlier than that, because it was incorporated as son of the cymbalsmith. Okay. So, you know, we set the date at 1623. That's just the incorporation. Family had to be doing it for some time before that.
Wow, interesting. So who in your family remained involved with SABIAN at the new beginning?
At the new beginning? Well, there was Dad, my brother, and me. And then I went off and finished high school and joined the Army and found my way through getting guidance in my life. Yeah, so there's no question that my mother was deeply involved in everything that was going on. And
it seemed like she was the voice of reason a lot of times. Like she was just sitting there until it was time to, you know, say the right thing, and she always did, it seemed like.
Oh yeah, and we'd have meetings. I've only had a couple arguments with my dad, but I'd have those arguments. And of course, Mom would say something like, "Oh, look at the flowers," which was to calm us all down. But we'd go through that, we'd have the arguments, would be done, and then later on, we'd be able to discuss it. And I'm sure it's because I'd settled, and my mom had settled my dad.
He was very concerned about, you know, the identity of the company and how we were perceived. And he knew he had an uphill battle, it seems, when he was starting from scratch. But he had a reputation in the industry that everybody knew, like, yeah, this guy's it's gonna be fine.
He can get things done.
But well, to have it done that quickly, I mean, to go from basically starting all over to, you know, a short time in 20 years, I mean, it was pretty much a household name, and so many of the members of the drumming community were playing it at that point. You know, what do you think was in the recipe? Because it wasn't just him, you know, what was in the recipe of SABIAN that brought, you know, drummers like Phil Collins and Dave Weckl and Jack DeJohnette and all these well-known people to the SABIAN sound? Well,
there's definitely a few different points that made the difference. One is belief. The belief that not only could we do it, but we were doing it, right? It was belief that started with Dad and worked down to everybody who was in the factory and then everybody who was outside. And that belief transferred to players who are interested in hearing a new sound. And the belief that we could do things brought about what I like to call the fearless innovation, which was, let's try something new. We're here to make a really good quality instrument. That's the reason why we started the company. Let's see what we can do to expand the palette for artists. Because at that point, when we first started the company, there were maybe 300 different sounds, sizes, series. Oh, yeah, everything that you could choose from, about 300. And then as time went on, that's I mean, it's shrunk a little bit now, but 5-10 years ago, it was 3,500 different types of, I know, it's crazy, right? But the idea was artists have a different sound. They want to hear it. That's their voice. They want to bring it out there. So his desire to bring that voice out there, and not only the idea that we believed that we could do it, but we were showing that we could do it, right? Mm-hmm. And artists were hearing it and saying, wait a minute, you guys are catering to the sound that I'm looking for. Can you do this? And then we do. Yeah. That blew their minds. And that kind of thing expanded, because now it's a larger belief because it's been proved time and time again. And so it's got that really cool, interesting, family B20 depth of richness of sound, but it was also catered to your specific needs.
So there's some milestones with Sabian that you're most proud of, maybe one or two?
Wow. Well, first of all, starting, right? Yeah. Yeah. Setting up the melting room so that we could make our own castings, because at that point, up until that point, we'd been buying them all from the factory in Norwell, and they've been coming up. We've been turning them into cymbals and then sending them back down. Now we could make our own, and actually, we decided on different size crucibles. We could make sure that it was cleaner. We could make sure that it mixed better. We could also experiment a little bit with using different types of insulators, and I think it turned out better. So not only is it easier to work, but also it ends up sounding better. And
well, that sort of brings up kind of, you have to look at it as sort of a stereotype, because not every cymbal is made the same way. But if you were to compare apples to apples to apples from different companies, like Sabian seems to always have had this more supple feel, which leads to a quicker response and kind of a smoother decay curve, as opposed to what other companies are known for, the European in particular, at that high sort of frequency where it sits, with the mid-range and pokes through. Do you agree with that?
I don't disagree with it. Yeah. I mean, because we can make anything out of our metals. So typically, the sounds that we have been asked to make are that kind of sound. And the feel. I mean, you get a guy like Jeff Hamilton. He wants the feel to be exactly the way he wants it to be. And Weckl is the same thing. All types of players who have this. This is specifically the way I want it to feel, and we can make it feel that way. And for those two guys specifically, it's easier because that's right in our wheelhouse. Whereas for other people, like when Ed Thigpen wanted to have his crystal ride, he wanted something that was a little more. It fought back a little bit more.
Pointed and focused, right?
Right. Yeah. But still had a broader sound than you typically get out of a flat cymbal. Yeah. So we could make that happen too.
It's interesting, because so many people have come over, endorsers have come over from other companies over the years, and they're always very happy with the feel and the sound, obviously. But there's always certain models, like the Chinese cymbals, for example, when ours were smooth and sort of sustained longer. And that's what kind of brought me to Sabian, was that Chinese sound, the AAX Chinese sound. Which that has to be another milestone for Sabian, is the AAX line, right?
Oh, no doubt. Because we've been talking for decades about how that was the first one to have not only the X hammering that it has, but the pinpoint lathing. And the way that takes the sound, and instead of being a broad spectrum coming out like a bull, it's coming out in a much more refined way. So it's a much quicker, definitely has a more focused sound, and also dies out more quickly. So we were the first ones to do that one. We were the first ones to do the HHX. And then based on that, we started working with Dave, and I know, and all of those very cool cymbals that he's come up with.
Evolution, and the story about the ozone is one of my favorite, where Dave was up there developing evolution with Mark Love, and found this piece of scrap on the floor that they had punched holes out of trying to make tambourine jingles. Yeah. And Dave says, "Oh man, that's that Tony Williams sound from the '60s. Like, can we do this?" And Mark just kind of went, "Oh, probably. Yeah, okay, yeah." Of course, you had to come up with a whole new way of making the metal more flexible, as I recall, in order to actually make those, so they didn't just shatter when you hit them with all those holes in it.
Right,
but that was another milestone in itself, when you can take an evolution cymbal and just bend it end to end almost. They're so flexible. Like, metal doesn't want to do that.
No.
But I used to do that at clinics, show people, and they go, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like, it's fine, see?
I know, it still scares me when you do it. Yeah. And I got a lot of them.
I'll pay for it if I break it. I know it's not going to break when they're tempered right, man. It's good stuff.
Actually, you know what was another cool thing that we did that was one of those fearless innovation things was when Bozzio came up. Yeah, because Terry came up and he said, I want to be able to go from the drums to the cymbals and back down again and use that as part of my melodic instrument as compared to making it an accent. And that type of voice, he wanted it to be a little more subdued and a part of almost like the way Jack looked at it was like, this is my piano. Mm-hmm. So then this is how I'm playing this one. And what we did with Terry's is we ended up doing it, the radius lathing, which was completely opposite from anything that we ever had done before.
Vibrations are supposed to be directed in a circle around the cymbal. No. Not for Terry.
No.
I mean, ingenious, absolutely ingenious player, one of my favorite of all time. But those cymbals were sort of the exact opposite of what everybody wanted out of a cymbal, which is no fundamental pitch.
Yep.
And, they wanted sustain. These only sustain long enough to give you the thing he was doing chromatically with cymbals and stacks like nobody else had ever done before. Yeah. And just genius and fabulous. But I think he was up there for 2 weeks straight.
Were you there?
No.
Oh, too bad.
Nord always used to tell the story, like 2 weeks straight and 44 different separate designs, as I recall. Man, you talk about a flexible factory.
I know.
That's amazing. 2 weeks and 44 different designs. That's crazy.
Well, he had a sound.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he wanted.
Oh, man, to watch him play those is just mind-boggling, to be able to watch a player who can play that melodically and around a kit, not just with a bank of drums tuned to specific notes. But with cymbals, you can't tune those until you're done.
Right.
They can be laid, like a crotalia, I guess, can be laid to a certain pitch.
Absolutely. Yes.
I imagine they were doing that, like take a little more off the edge of this one, or the middle as they scrape the radial tonal grooves in it. Like that must have taken forever, man.
It was kind of tough. So yeah, it did take time.
I'm jealous that I wasn't there, but kind of not.
Yeah, I know.
It must have been some hard work for those guys. But
yeah, actually, I saw Mark last week. I was just up talking with him, and we were going over, talking about that whole thing. And Randy, took his spot. Had said, no, I didn't hear these stories. Tell me more about these stories. And I asked him, and he said, so wait a minute, is that his kit that's upstairs? Now, do you remember what he did after he had been at the factory for those 2 weeks?
Didn't he make a drum set out of cymbals and gongs and thunder sheets?
He absolutely did. And he said, okay, on Thursday, I'm going to play for everybody. And I thought, oh, wow, is this going to come off well? Because, everybody's got a lot of work to do. We've just spent 2 weeks really focusing on him. I hope this is worthwhile. And anyway, I got out there and everybody was 4:30 in the afternoon looking to see. And there was this kit set up that was nothing but cymbals and gongs and thunder sheets. And I thought, man, I don't know. I hope the guys can really get into this thing. When he started playing, it absolutely blew my mind. Have you ever seen the video of that?
I have, yeah.
Oh my God. Not just the sound that he was getting out of it, but also the composition that he made with it.
Well, can you imagine hitting a Zodiac gong with a pedal, I think, if I believe what it was.
Yeah.
At the velocity you hit a bass drum is not the same velocity you're going to hit that gong to make it sound like boom, boom, like a bass drum. But he just automatically adjusted to the right level in order to be able to, make that song work. Andy, what's your personal favorite cymbal?
All right, so we've got three, right? And the first one, of course, is the HH sound control that I was talking about.
22-inch?
The depth on that is blows my mind. And there was another one that we don't make anymore, but we can have it made, which was a fast Chinese. And it was 16-inch fast Chinese. I had a lot of guys from New York coming up, and they were looking for a nice quick splash that would come in and get out and really quickly. And when they'd hear that one, whoa.
Had a short, turned-up lip, right?
Yeah, just
in
tiny.
the China direction.
Just a little bit more than a sound control, so you get a little more cacophony, but it would also die out very quickly. Beautiful, beautiful little crash. Yeah. Problem was, as with the sound controls, because that edge was there, if people started hitting them too hard, that was a weak point, yeah. And the other one was, and I mentioned it before, the Ed Thigpen Crystal Ride. Yeah. That one in an 18, just absolutely gorgeous.
Flat?
Yes, flat. It was a flat ride. It was thinner and it was a little bit flatter. And when you hit that, it had a sound that came out of it. Typically they're a dry cymbal, right? This one was a lot more life to it, just beautiful. And we were at the Chicago Trade Show when we were first showing this thing off, and Harvey Mason was there. And Harvey's playing it and listening to it and saying, man, this is really great. It's really great. And this guy comes over from another booth and he goes, hey, Benson's here. You want to play? So George Benson was there with a guitar, and this other guy had a bass, and Harvey looked and he grabbed a set of hi-hats and that cymbal, and he walked over and he started playing along with those guys. And, you know, Benson started playing and gave a little bit of a lead, and the bass player gave a little bit of lead, and they're looking at Harvey like, well, you only got 2 cymbals. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. He blew them away.
No,
yeah. Man, it was amazing the stuff he was doing on those things with the hi-hat rolling at one tempo and then doing something that was going off the hi-hat stand and run the ride. Oh, man. Fantastic.
So many drummers identify personally with the brands that they play. You know, what would you want people to know about Sabian's brand identity?
One of the things I like about creatives, artists, is that when the people who are actually making a difference are taking a risk. So they're pushing the boundaries of music. They're trying to find new ways of expressing, you know, their musical voice. They're breaking down the boundaries, and that's what we do. We have that innovation. We have the ability to create sound that will help them to be able to break those boundaries. So the risks that we take. And the risks that they take, I like to think that they feel like they're part of that risk-taking family, right? Yeah. Right. So we both will push the envelope as far as we can. We're not making pop. We're not making karaoke. We're pushing that sound barrier, pushing the whole time. That and also, I mean, the quality that we come out with, it has to be perfect. Everyone will have its own personality, but it's got to be perfect. And that type of focus on making sure that what we do is as good as it can be, that's another thing that we find in our artists too, that they are focused on making themselves as good as they possibly can be.
Relevance.
Right, yep. And at the same time, having a damn good time doing it, right? Because if you're not, like I said, if you're not, what are you doing?
Yep. So what's your vision for Sabian's future? You know, what's that look like?
Well, no question, staying in the quality zone, but also keep innovating, keep pushing the envelope. That group of risk takers, of artists, of people who are being creative, is more and more influencing what we're doing. So, still innovating, quality control, definitely doing as much as we can to make the B20, the cast cymbals, the voice of creative artists. Yeah.
So what is the reason a cymbal would be discontinued?
Nobody wants it. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. If there's a sound that's weird, but people like it, absolutely. This is what people are asking for. But if there's a sound that just it's not in the palette anymore, what's the point?
Again, relevance. So what are you listening to lately?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because lately I've been getting more into symphonic. I've always liked all different genres. I always wanted to hear what was going on in different all different types of music. Country music, of course, has been taking off and been doing really well. Rock and roll and metal. I've been starting to listen to a little bit more metal. I know, I've been really getting into Thomas
Hockey.
Him, and then, but symphonic has been taking me too. I mean, recently I brought Deb, my wife, we went to see the BSO, Boston Symphony, play Beethoven 6, one of my favorites. And unfortunately, I'm going to be away for them playing the ninth, which I really wanted to hear that one.
With the orchestra, with the choral, and
God, it's fantastic.
I can only imagine in Symphony Hall, that's going to be pretty spectacular.
Okay, Chris, so let me turn this back on you. What are you finding that's really interesting in what we're doing now?
Well, it's still exciting to create with some of the world's greatest drummers. And more recently, we have been developing stuff with Todd Zuckerman and Mike Portnoy.
Yep.
Thin chimes. They're not like ice bells or our cup chimes. They're much thinner, but do not sound like splashes. We redesigned the Max splashes for Mike too. So
Okay.
check those out.
Yeah.
They're still quick and fast and respond really well. But then, of course, there's the new Max Ride, which is, the best of so many things. It takes sort of the best of maybe a 22-inch Legacy and 22-inch Artisan medium or complex almost, but gives it more of a rock bell, again, unfinished, brilliant finish for that smooth attack. So all this kind of stuff always excites me. So don't worry there. Still plenty of gas left in the tank.
Okay, cool.
You remember the day we met? I was rolling through Boston on tour and had a day off after playing the Paradise or Harper's Ferry or something. So I was staying with my buddy David Kelly, who worked for you at the time.
DK.
And he's like, bring your cymbals, well, if you want to check out some stuff or whatever. I walk over to the office across the street, and he introduces me to everybody. And his office is the last door on the left, and the last person I met. There's a life-size cutout of Austin Powers, by the way.
I love that thing.
Yeah, baby, whenever you walked by it. So, I don't know how you could stand that day after day, but it was funny.
You could turn it off.
The first thing you said to me was, hey, I'm Andy Zildjian, nice to meet you. If you want that bag of cymbals, they're out by the dumpster, but I think you can go in the back there and find some better cymbals if you want. I went out there and I found some great stuff, and I've still got one of those cymbals, as a matter of fact. It's, remember the HH Mini Bell ride? Yeah, going way back. I think they were behind your door. I don't think they were really at the dumpster, but I did go look by the dumpster just to see. No, that was a lot of fun. And
it had to be fun because, really, if you're in this business and you're not enjoying it, what the hell are you doing?
Boss, thanks so much for being here.
Boss.
It's been great. Thank you for being here.
All right, you keep it going.